Hi guys. So I've been thinking about these videos I've been making for you, and I wanted to mention a couple of things because I go back and I watch them before I post them, and I'm like, did I just say that? I can't believe it. Um, so I want to go back to something that's been nagging at me since Linda asked about, is it G here or is it G here? Is it from the waist? And I made this big deal about right angles, going forward. And the whole point that I was trying to communicate is that G is the expression of G is forward. So whatever that means, you can G here. We have this G, right? We have this G. We have this G. We can G here. I thought of, when everyone said, well, when we go down here, we really feel the pelvis and we feel strong. And I said, well, what about the tendency for this to happen, which could happen for many people? You could start to shove your pelvis under. But if you feel that good connection of where you're turning your pelvis into the floor, but not bracing it, you can even do this with your fists and sort of push them forward as you turn your pelvis and push your legs into the floor. That's very good. That's the feeling we want. And I had the, we're a hardy folk here in northern Michigan, and the feeling you have of when you're pushing a wheelbarrow, right? That feeling of pushing from here. So that's a long-winded answer to, is it here or here? It doesn't matter. You can G here, and this is not G. This is a punch. So cancel. What else do I want to say? Also something I picked up, I just wanted to mention. I caught it on myself, and maybe you do it too, which is when we go from here to this very first movement of palm, before we take the circles in the plane of the clock. I noticed, and you would have to watch yourself in front of a mirror to see if you do this as well, that, can you see? The first thing I did was I lifted my shoulders. I lifted my shoulders, which as we know, lifting the shoulders lifts us off the floor and ungrounds us. So maybe you do that too. So what would be the antidote? You could try, I'm going to keep my shoulders down. That would be one approach, but that's using unnecessary tension. So something about skeletal support and muscles. Muscles will tonify and do their job of moving the skeleton as long as the skeleton has support. So we need support from the environment, meaning the floor. If you're trying to push off of sand or mud, it's much harder than when you're on a good firm surface. It's hopefully flat. So there's environmental support, but then there's skeletal support. And when we don't have either, the muscles will start to tonify in ways that are using themselves to stabilize the system rather than move it efficiently. So that's why skeletal support is so important. If the skeletal doesn't feel its own support, it's going to start to use what in Feldenkrais is called parasitic movement, which is unnecessary. It's like a parasite that's clinging on. So I was thinking about what would be a way to lift the whole skeleton up without lifting pieces of it up. And there's a lesson that I taught recently. I mentioned it, I've touched on it a couple of videos ago, which was when you're holding onto your wrist and pulling your arm up. Pulling your arm up. So if you were just to stand, I'll talk you through it. Hold your wrist, stand in a comfortable stance, and let your head actually hang back. Unless you have a reason to not look up or let your head hang back, let your head actually hang back. The skull's going to hang back, and you look with your eyes up at your wrist. And you gently, very gently, without force, start to lengthen your arm up. And you might feel a lot of stuff going on. You might feel that you're reaching. You might feel that your arms get tired. And what we're looking for is a really clear skeletal connection that is such that you could pull yourself over onto one leg and the opposite heel would just come away from the floor and the leg would start to hang. So what do I mean by that? I'll try to show you. If you take, I'm using my left hand, and I'm going to pull in the direction so that I'm going over my right leg. So it's my left heel that I want to leave the floor. So of course, I could do this. I could just lift it off, right? But that's not what we're after. If you, it's something that just happens, and it can't help but happen when you find the right trajectory for your arm over the other hip. So the head hangs back. You're not reaching, you're not lifting. That's different than pulling. It's like the ribs, and it's almost like you're dropping and lifting rather than stretching and reaching. Does that make sense? Try it for yourself. Take one arm, look at it, look with your eyes, let your head hang back, and just keep lengthening, not forcefully, not strong, not with a lot of power, just lengthen until you feel the other heel just, it's like a featherweight. It's like a featherweight. Do that several times. Rest your arms frequently. Rest your arms frequently. I've started doing this every morning as I make my tea. I used to just get back in bed and wait till I heard the kettle whistle. And now I'm like, no, I use this 5-10 minutes when the water's boiling to stand, and I do this. I do this because I have found, since discovering this lesson about a week ago, that I'm much more on top of my hip joints. My hip joints, my bum hip doesn't hurt anymore, and everything is just, life is just better. So I wanted to share that with you. Oh my God, I have animals that are starting to whine and cry. But play with it, and maybe I will post the entire lesson if I can manage to teach it and record it, and you can play with that lesson on your own. But so point being, how does that relate to this first move? Well, if you can lift your whole skeleton by lifting the skeleton, not by lifting with your muscles, by pulling the skeleton, then you can open out, and anyway, I found that if I looked for that connection, how does the skeleton lift without me, without this? Master Zhang used to say to me, "You anxious," you know, so there are people like this, and I am one of them. So don't lead with your shoulders. Find the skeletal support. Use your mind, not your muscles. and the skeleton will organize itself. If you have the correct image in your brain, keep these 3 points lined up, shoulders hanging, rib cage hanging. If you keep insisting on this picture, it will become a fact. Okay, I think I gotta go. My animals are yelling at me. Bye, guys. Hope that was useful.